Brand disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed by individuals on this platform, the callers plus invited guests, are their own. The information you hear does not reflect the overall views of all parties associated with this brand. We encourage everyone to research all things heard live or via archive for edification purposes. Discretion is advised.
Fringe check, download today. Fringes is a new mobile app designed to meet, mix, and post with Torah keepers like you. That's right, how pleasant is it for brethren to dwell together in unity? Bring it out! Fringes is available on Google Play and the App Store.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
My first special guest has been here before, and she is back. This is Sister Danielle. What's going on?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me back on the show. I'm honored to be back.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Once again, welcome to the show. Is there anything you want to put out there for the people real quick? Any information, websites, whatever, briefly? You can do that now.
Well, you can definitely find me on my Facebook channel. I'm in my Facebook page, Danelle Wright. I'm also hosting on another radio show, which is D&D Live. That's D, the and sign, and another D, Live. You can find our radio show page on Facebook there. You can also download the app 99.9 FM The Plug, and you can tune in to the radio show. We will be going back live as of March, the beginning of March, so every Friday from 5 to 7 our time in California.
All right, I'm going to post that in the description box as well. Make sure I support y'all. Make sure it's support. Check it out. And my next special
Thank you
guest
very much.
Yeah, I got you. And my next special guest is another intelligent sister. She's been here before. She's back once again. This is Reese Roberts. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. I'm also very glad and honored to be back. Just to say a little bit about my project, I have an enrichment program. If you'd like to support the website to register or to get information about the program is at www.serveincorporated.com. Serve is spelled without the E at the end. It's just SERV. I think Sal will have the link at the end of the show. My website is www.reeseroberts.com for the podcast that I host at least twice a week, which is called Entertainment Thought, talking about conscious topics dealing with human behavior, human consciousness, and pretty much human evolution. That's about it.
Once again, family, of course, I'm going to add all of that in the description box so you can reach out later on. It's going to be a good show. Make sure you get your pen and pads ready. Take down some notes as usual. And we're going to get right into this. Conspiracies. What I'm going to do tonight, I'm just going to basically run down a few conspiracy theories that's out there. And, of course, I'm going to name them one by one. And you're going to either say yes and no if you believe it or not, and then expound on, the information that you have in regards to these particular topics. So are you ladies ready?
Absolutely.
I'm ready.
All right, so the first one is a big one, of course, a lot of people talk about, is the New World Order. Do you believe our future eventually will lead to a New World Order, way of life? Or many people on social media, allegedly, did some research on the matter, and they think that it's in the Bible, or there's a lot of evidence of something happening in the world where it's going to be a new system, new world order. First of all, I'm going to go to Sister Danielle first. Do you believe that there's a new world order? And then you can expound on some information that you may have on that. The new world order, do you believe that? Conspiracy.
Okay. My response in regards to my belief of the New World Order, one of the things that I would like to say is my position on conspiracy theories in general is they are possible. because I believe that conspiracies do exist, I do believe that there is a reason why certain people believe them and certain people don't. I'd like to expound on that maybe a little bit later. In regards to the New World Order in particular, I would have to say, yes, I do believe that there is a conspiracy by people in charge that would like to control the masses and who probably are in elite positions controlling a lot of decisions being made at this time.
All right, let's go to Reese Roberts. What do you believe when it comes to the New World Order? Do you believe it's true, it's not true?
I also believe the New World Order is true. I do agree that I believe anything is possible, especially when we come to understand so many things about our enemies so far, and the things so far have been unspeakable and unimaginable until it comes to them. So I do believe anything is possible, and there is plenty of evidence to support the theory of a New World Order.
All right, well, let's expound on that. What do you believe is the New World Order, and how do you feel like it's going to come about, Reese Roberts? How do you feel like it's going to come or enter the world, according to your research?
So this is a spiritual happening. I understand the way that it works with the universe is as above, so below. And so when they say a New World Order, it really is making reference to the new age. We're now in what's called the age of information. And because of that, we must have a New World Order because we have a new global collective consciousness and understanding, and which is the reason why so many of us are raising our vibrations and our intelligence, because we know globally that this is time for something to change.
And Sister Danielle, that.
My response in regards to how it will come about, I can't say that I'm experienced enough to give that type of opinion. That's one of the things that I would like to bring out about conspiracy theories in general is the reason why they exist and the reason why people believe in conspiracy theories are because they are looking for explanation for something that has happened, in my opinion. Usually, if it's a small event, a small circumstance, a small explanation will suffice. But if there is a tragic event such as an assassination or, people accusing the government of 9/11 being an inside job or whatever, because it was such a large event, a catastrophic event, they're looking for a more reasonable fitting explanation. They think there has to be a bigger explanation. So as far as me thinking that the New World Order is going to come about, yes, I agree with Sister Reese that there is a lot of evidence to support the theory that there is a New World Order that is trying to birth out, and there are people that would like to be in charge of controlling the world. I mean, the whole idea behind the New World Order conspiracy is that a secretive power leader will have an agenda to conspire and control the world. So, I mean, I do think that there are people out there, the elite, that would conspire to do certain things. But the reason why I believe that is because I myself have personally seen some conspiracies that have turned out to be true. When you look at people that have experienced things that have turned out to be true, in my opinion, they are more likely to look at the evidence and consider it factual. So I myself can look at the evidence and say, well, yeah, I believe that this is a conspiracy because the evidence says this, this, and that, where somebody else could look at that same evidence and have a completely rational explanation for why it turned out the way it did. I think that we accept conspiracy theories because we, number one, have been exposed to things that don't seem right, and number two, we don't have a rational explanation for the situation and how it happened, and we're looking for answers. And then number three, I also believe that the impoverished people or the people that don't have certain control, they use that as a defense mechanism. It must be somebody conspiring against me. kind of thing. So there's a lot of reasons why we believe the evidence that is presented, in my opinion.
Sister Reese, you can respond. Okay.
Okay. So I want to try to explain this as shortly as possible, but it kind of gets detailed just, as far as the explanation of it, because it has a lot to do with the history of man and evolution. And so one thing I like to pay attention to in my studies is how the evolution of man takes place and what is actually happening when things occur in history, and what, especially when there's a lie being told and then the truth is discovered, there's always an arrow that points to one direction when you have those types of occurrences. And so with Caucasian race wanting to be the dominant race, that, of course, has been proven in history, that their activity on the planet has supported that theory, that they want to dominate the globe. You can see evidence of that in the way that they move their military forces across to different regional areas to take over, to democratize, and then to monetize the human resources in that area. And so when we understand that they create this system that supports them wherever they go, they're not there to create any system that supports the people where they establish their settlements or their colonies, so to speak. Their New World Order is just about complete. It's because of the fact that their presence is global. If you think about it in terms of the Federal Reserve Bank, it's a well-known fact that that bank exists in pretty much every continent in every corner of the globe. And because of that, we know that they have some form of control wherever they are, because they're creating these monetized, democratized systems that pretty much support them, and they do it by force. And so for everyone to now be subject to that power, America is a perfect example, in Africa as well. Different countries in Africa, which are colonized by Caucasians, same dilemma. These people are here to dominate and create a system of dependency where they collect and claim ownership of all of our natural resources. And I'm saying our, meaning it belongs to everybody, but they claim ownership of it and then create the system to where you have to pretty much ask them for use of your own natural resources. The fact that we have to spend so much of our income to pay for things that are literally free and abundant on the planet is just, it's unthinkable when you put it in plain and simple terms. But we don't look at it that way, because all we know is that we require a government to govern over our minds and the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. But if we were to remove that middleman and serve each other like we did in our ancient, history, our ancient civilizations that thrived, we lived on a system of sharing and bartering, not a system of individualism and capitalism. That they're going to, move towards a one world order where everybody is a part of this democratized, monetized system on an economy that's based on natural resources that they just claimed ownership of. And we all pretty much have to participate in that, because Caucasians determined that they're dominant, and by force they have established their dominance, and that's how they choose to run society. But for there to be a new world order, they have to have our participation in that. And if we wake up to see that we don't actually need them anymore, then we will, of course, determine how evolution continues. We will have to decide if we want to subscribe to the federal government that claims to be there for our welfare, but yet everything they do is for our detriment, Are we going to continue to ascribe theory that race has anything to do with it instead of money? Because they treat poor white people the same way they treat poor black people. It's the wealth that gets you a part of the comforts of society, where you don't have to worry about your necessities like having food, water, and the things, like I said, that are free from the earth. So we have to understand that it's when you have irrefutable evidence, things that is empirical truth because it happened in the past, it's hard to ignore. And I'm going to wrap up with that.
All right, so yeah, Sister Danielle, I'm going to let you respond real quick. But audience, I see you guys calling in. The number's 319-527-6239. Feel free to chime in. If you have any questions or comments, you dial that number, press number 1, and we'll want to hear from you. You can also send me an email, debatetalkforyou@gmail.com. That's debatetalk, the number 4, letter U @gmail.com. And I'll gladly read out your questions or your comments to the special guest. Sister Danielle, that.
Okay, so I definitely agree with Sister Reese in regards to the evidence that's present and the reason why there would be enough evidence to support their reason to pursue a new world order. My addition to that and what I would like to add to that is just in humanity. I would just like to raise the question just, to the panel, to the listeners. If you had the opportunity, like let's say you had some information that nobody else had. If you had some power that nobody else had, would it be in your nature to make decisions that you felt were in the best interest of the masses? Or would you personally share that information so everybody can have the freedom of making their own decision? Now, if you were to poll a lot of people on that question, a lot of people would say, no, I would be fair with the masses. I would share my knowledge. I would share my wealth, whatever the case may be. But then there are some people out there that would feel like the right thing to do and the justified thing to do what would be right for them morally. And all those people that don't agree with them morally, most cases, we like to perceive them as wrong. And we like to make judgment calls, and that's why we put government in place and we do certain things like that, because we want to force people to live the way we morally think that they should live. And so just in considering humanity and what we would do if we had the power and how conspiracies work and why they are effective in the first place, I would just say, what would we do personally? And it exists in our culture as well. When we get a little bit of power or a little bit of position, what do we do to each other? Do we look out for each other? And yes, we can look at all the reasons as why and all the things that come back to why we ended up the way we ended up and how we have this PTSD and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's still reality. The reality is a lot of people take advantage of the power that they have at their fingertips. And that's what we're dealing with here. The definition of a conspiracy is what we're dealing with here. And a lot of people, I really don't even know what that is. But when you have somebody that is in a position of power, or you have someone that is influential and they're controlling or manipulating things so that they can have their desired purpose fulfilled, then a lot of times you have these conspiracies that are going to take place and they're going to justify it as them thinking that it's in the best interest. So I would just say, in addition to what Sister Reese was saying, that we have to consider also what we would do in our moral state and why we vote the way that we vote and why we think the way that we think, because that plays a part into it as well. Because, yeah, that would be a big reason as to why they would conspire to control the masses or have a new world order, because they have the resources to do so. And they may be the type of people that would vote, I'm doing what I feel is best for the masses.
Right. Most definitely. Once again, it's the Roundtable, episode 44, Family Conspiracy Theories. That number, 319-527-6239. I see people calling in via phone, via Skype. Like I said, feel free to chime in. Press number 1. We'll add you in the conversation, or send me an email, debatetalkforyou@gmail.com. What I'm going to do, because I have a lot of titles, lined up to go through as far as conspiracy theories, what they are they true, are they, not real? So I'm going to have both special guests, speak about New World Order, and we're going to go to the next subject. If they missed out anything that they wanted to add, you can bring it out now. Sister Reese, any final thoughts as far as New World Order is concerned? Go ahead.
Well, yes, I can just answer one of the questions that was asked. I think I heard it's Danelle, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Danelle. Danelle asked if, what can we do in our personal positions, or, how are we looking out for each other? And I think the best answer to that I can give is for us to educate ourselves and go ahead and share our knowledge. I think we're doing a great job of that right now as a culture. As far as sharing knowledge is concerned, most people that I meet these days who are melanated are very well articulated. I should say they're well educated, and they articulate themselves very well to share knowledge and to, just sort of build on healthy conversations and discussions like this one. And I'm proud of that, because if we don't have anything else to fall back on, we know that we can fall back on our minds and our spirits, and that's proper for the times that we live in right now, because, like I said, we're in a spiritual engagement with a spiritual enemy, and that only means that this is a mental thing. They're not conquering us because we're not powerful enough, or because we don't have enough organization, or whatever the case, because we're unifying right now simply because we are educating and sharing knowledge. That's a form of unification. Once we all are sharing the same empirical truth, at some point, we'll reach the point where we are all unified in our thoughts, and that will help us to guide ourselves in the correct direction. And so the federal government will be sort of ousted by the time we educate ourselves fully, because we know that there is this is going to kind of take me down a complicated path, but the federal government is a corporation, and they're not doing anything but providing government services for us. So we're powerful enough to understand that conceptually, and to learn the laws, and to properly position ourselves so that we can organize and then compete with what they're actually doing, because that's essentially what needs to happen. If there's a corporation, something like Target, they would have competition, something like Walmart. And so essentially that's what our culture, that's what our people need to do. We need to organize so that we can compete, like I said, for the position of government service provider, because that's all they are. They're just a private corporation that provides us government services. And if we can get ourselves together enough to provide our own services to ourselves, something, again, that I see happening in our culture, the way we're moving, we are coming together in a lot of different ways, and I feel very optimistic about that pretty often. So I think that's something that we all can do, is that we can educate ourselves, like I said, and we can continue to return to our nature, which is to share, which is to, be natural, to think and to interact with each other on a spiritual level. And we'll eventually get to a point where our enemy will no longer even exist, because we won't see them as an obstacle or a problem. They'll just kind of fade away.
All right, this is Danielle. Go ahead.
I would say I definitely agree with Sister Reese in regards to being strategic in our methods and in our ways to prepare ourselves better. I would definitely say that there are going to be some that are going to position themselves so that they can be independent financially and socially. And I also think that there are going to be some that will not change. And I am optimistic that a lot are waking up right now, especially in our generation. And I believe that Sister Reese and I are in probably two slightly different generations. But I do believe that the latter generations are starting to wake up a lot more than the former generations because of the season that we're in. And so I do believe that there are going to be more strategic things that we see. And for those people that are seeking knowledge, it's available and the resources are there. And I do agree that it's platforms like these that are sharing knowledge and just discussing this information that is going to help that process along.
Mm-hmm.
All right, family. Once again, it's the Roundtable episode 44. The number's 3. I see we got a caller. I see you got more people calling in too. The number's 319-527-6239. Matter of fact, let's just take this caller real quick, and we're going to go on to the next subject. But hold on. Let's go to 403-888. You're live.
Thanks for taking my call, Sal. Hello to the panel. My name is Brian. I would like to give you just a quick alternate idea to the idea of a coordinated New World Order. First of all, very, very rich people, some of them well-intentioned, maybe others not so well-intentioned. I think it makes sense that somebody who has a lot of wealth and a lot of power would try to influence the world in some way. The question is whether or not it is truly a coordinated one world group. We hear people talking about the Illuminati, and somebody else says it's this group, somebody else says it's that group. I'd like to give an alternate view and see what the panel has to say about it. Most people don't realize, or they forget, that it's really only 100 to 150 years ago, everybody coming over to North America, with the exception of slaves, were dirt poor farmers mostly from Europe. They were penniless. They and their ancestors before them had been peasants, working on farms, working on manors. They were just peasants. They had no real rights. So this great American thing happened on this continent, where people were able to eke out a living on the land themselves, and slowly but surely all of this wealth has been created. And the biggest thing that was created is this gigantic middle class of people who, frankly, we're all free to do whatever we want just about in America. And we can go out and make money. It frankly doesn't really matter what color we are, white, brown, black, yellow. People can go out and start a business or get jobs and build a home and build a family. And this is something that prior to 100 years ago did not exist. So I reject the idea of a calibrated, planned out one world order. I do think that this middle class is the real thing that's happened in the last 100 to 150 years, and it's actually quite a miracle if you take all of history going back. Most of us, all our ancestors, were all peasants, or people living. In your case, if we're black, people living in Africa, but even the Europeans were all poor people. So I'd just like to hear what the panel has to say about that idea, as opposed to a one world conspiracy. Thanks, Sal.
All right. We appreciate your call, and if you want to have another question later on, just press number 1 twice, and we'll bring you back on again later on. All right. So let's go to Reese Roberts. You want to take on that question? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Sure, absolutely. So I definitely respect the perspective, and I appreciate the attention to certain facts in history. However, there are a few misconceptions about what we're calling history or the past, and our ancestors, European ancestors, have a very specific origin. People of color have also a very specific geographical origin on the planet. And so when you consider history, the history of melanated people, or people of color on the planet, it goes back further, way further than any European ancestor. And so in that history, the part where Europeans did not exist, the people of color on the planet thrived. And wealth was based on tangible goods that actually were of the earth. And the systems that were created were based on spiritual systems, which are scientific. And I think that's very important to consider, because the systems that govern our planet are all scientific systems. But we have to be very careful to respect science, because it is not to be worshipped or praised or anything to that effect, not to be institutionalized, but it is to be respected, because science is the only thing we can rely on to solidify our reality, which is the reason why our reality is controlled by systems. When you think about, for example, the science of politics, it is a political science, which means that it is something that's governed by spiritual law, okay, because it's a science. And so you think about political science in the way our civilizations were structured in the past. Like I said, I'm speaking now about the period of time where Europeans did not exist, because that was a long period of time. We had spiritual systems of politics and hierarchies that were governed by spiritual law and by our blood, which is the reason why when you trace a person's genetic lineage, you have to take their blood, because their blood is what's connected to the geographic location on the planet, spiritual thing, and it's scientific. So we're not looking for who had the most wealth or who created the most wealth. We're looking at the end result. When you put a manufactured system together, you're looking for the input to go in a certain way, the system will function, and then you get a certain output. The prehistoric, and I'm now going to just call it prehistoric because that's what Europeans call it, the period of time before Europeans existed, it's called prehistoric. So during prehistoric times, they thrived. I can't really put that in a better way. They thrived, okay? Civilizations thrived. And yes, you had different classes and you had different orders and different hierarchies. You had an emperor and they had an empire that they governed, but this was a successful event. They even had wars and disputes like normal, but they thrived. And yes, they did have slavery, and I'm not ignorant to that fact, but according to the history that I've read, it was in the most humane of ways. It was not brutal or barbaric the way modern slavery was. So we have to understand that there's a different output that we're getting. In my definition of a thriving civilization, I would call that the prehistoric time. But if you look at modern civilization, we're not thriving. And I don't think too many people can argue with that. We're living on an unstable economy. We have a corrupt political system. We have a failing education system. And hear my words, these are systems, man-made, institutionalized systems that have been created, and they are all failing because they're being run by people who are to be considered babies in history. It's like letting your toddler get behind the wheel of your car. And so, yes, you have people with good intentions, but yes, good intentions pave the road to hell. And look at where we are. There's not any question that we're in a failed society. How many times has that been written in prehistoric times where Caucasians did not exist? It shouldn't be a question of what the problem is. We're under wrong leadership. I guess I'm just going to close out on that.
There we go. Reese Roberts going in. I'm going to go to Sister Dan. You right about that. Yeah, Sister Dan, you can respond. Go ahead. Good.
Well, I definitely have to say that I'm glad that my sister has pointed out a lot of the details in why she believes the way she believes, because I don't have to repeat some of the facts. So yes, absolutely, her facts, in my opinion, are accurate. But one of the things that I also want to bring to the table is that, in my opinion, the reason why we got here and the reason why we can't just focus on the current status is because you have to get to the root of things, and again, where it started, how you got here. And so, in my opinion, the way we think today is all a consequence and a reaction to everything that we've been through. And yes, in prehistoric times, society here in what is now known as America was thriving. Before we were colonized, we were thriving, and we were not lacking any resources. Our land was not exploited. But the people that came over here, their land had been exploited, and that's why they came in the first place. So to put them in leadership, and now our land and our resources and our situation looks very similar to what they were running from before we were colonized, it does seem to feel like maybe the wrong type of government and the wrong type of people are in control. So I would agree that there is definitely a reason to look at who's in order. I mean, who has the power right now, who's ruling certain things, and why are certain things set up the way that they are, and how things were working before this came into play versus how they're working now. I also want people to understand. I also want people to understand that when it comes down to conspiracies and things like that, what it really is a loss of confidence. Loss of confidence is actually a loss of self-trust, and then that is a loss of knowledge. The less self-confident you are in yourself, the less you're going to believe in the knowledge that you believe that you have. You know what I mean? And the less that you believe that you know. And knowledge requires a certain amount of self-trust, because you could decide that, okay, well, I turned the stove off this morning. But if you get in a car with your spouse and your spouse says, you didn't turn the stove off this morning, and they create enough doubt, they can get you to believe that you didn't turn the stove off this morning, even if the facts have not changed. Even if you knew without a shadow of a doubt that you turned the stove off, if they could remind you of times that you couldn't trust your memory before, or whatever the case might be before, then they can create enough self-doubt to make you doubt yourself and doubt your knowledge and what you know without changing the facts at all. And I believe that is what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with the consequences of someone creating so much self-doubt that we don't have the confidence to know, to have certain knowledge. And in our seeking it, we have all these conspiracies.
Hey, Sister Danielle, break it down. I want to get the number 319-527-6239. I see we got some more callers calling in. We appreciate you. I want to hear from the audience. We like to hear from the people out there. So, again, the number is 319-527-6239. I see I got an email. I'm going to check it out. But let's go to the next topic. Let's go to the subject. Let's go to the next subject. A lot of people dread talking about this particular subject. It has broken up families, marriages. A lot of people has had serious arguments in regards to this particular subject. Let's talk about religion. Some people believe, I hear you, some people believe that when it comes to religion, that it is also a part of the big conspiracy theory in this world. We're going to talk about that. What do you believe in regards to religion? Is there some kind of systematic thing in place where, these different denominations of religion has been put out there all across the globe? Is it good for us? Is it bad for us? Let's go to Sister Danielle first.
Well, this is a topic that I am far too familiar with, let me just give a little bit of background here. First off, I am a PK. I was raised in a Christian church. I always questioned certain things that just didn't feel right, And it just, you were taught not to question things. You were taught to be quiet and just accept it, even if it sounds like a fairy tale or whatever, or a lot of hocus pocus stuff. But in my digging to find truth for myself, I have come to the conclusion, and I'm just going to put it out here, I believe religion is of the devil. And that's just a fluid statement. I'm just saying that. I
hear the hand claps. I
do not believe in religion, and I come from a religious family. So it's not because I was bred into believing the way I believe. I feel like I have an independent way of thinking. I am not a follower, and I do my own research. And I do believe that there is enough history to back up a higher power. And I do believe that there is enough history, in my opinion, to back up the Most High. And in my opinion, I do believe in Christ. So, but that is my personal belief. And that is because I did some research and I asked for a personal experience, and I believe I received it. I'm not going to get into my testimony, but I believe that religion has been so twisted and misconstrued that I would not recommend anybody search any type of religion to just follow and say, this is my religion, I'm going to follow it. Now, to be knowledgeable of the religions, absolutely. But I believe having a personal relationship with the Most High is the most important thing. But religion is a way to divide, and I don't believe in that.
All right, Reese Roberts, go ahead.
Well, I just was clapping because that is similar to my story and the reason why I do not subscribe to any idea of religion, because the Bible tells you, if you study it, that, there are certain things that are very simple in the Bible that tell you that you are God. And it doesn't remove you from it. Like, it doesn't say you are dependent upon God to do this, that, or the other. It tells you, well, maybe in other places, but it tells you very specifically that you are God. Or, I guess, if somebody knows the scripture where it says, ye are gods, I can't remember what scripture it is, but to me, that's the most important one in the Bible, because it's the most true one in the Bible, where we have to recognize that as the supreme truth over everything else, is that I am God. And I don't have to subscribe to a religion in order for me to have a connection to that which I am. And so there is no gray area there for confusion. And so when you introduce religion into a people who don't believe that they are God, then they have to turn to the religion, which is also to be considered idolatry. Because anytime you turn to something instead of the real thing itself, clearly idolatry, where you're giving so much of your energy and power over to this, formless thing that's just religion. Anybody can create a religion. Anybody can say that, this is who God is and what God is. We have to, at some point, recognize that having these variations means something. There's a different God for every culture. And, we have to just kind of think about that for a minute and think about why that happens that way, instead of just saying, oh, okay, well, this is the religion I was born in, and this is the religion I'm going to accept. It's just not very feasible to me. I was also raised as a very free thinker. My mom was a nomadic type, gypsy type of woman. She just always was moving about. I never had one particular home. I was just always moving, and feel like it gave me a very close connection with I am, because I never really had a religion to even think about. She took us to church sometimes, but it wasn't enough for any of it to sink in. You know, when you're a child, you go to church and fall asleep, and then you go downstairs and eat, and that's it. But I never really had a deep, ingrained concept of God or Jesus or anything. So when I did study the religion at an older age, I went into it as a completely clean slate. And by the third year of study, I knew something was wrong, and I had to figure it out. So I continued my studies on to spirituality, and there's where I found my answer. So to me, religion is completely, you can do without it, but I won't say that religion does not have a purpose. I will say that religion can teach a person in very wholesome ways if they know the correct way to approach it in their perception. If they have the Bible in the proper context of what the Bible actually is, which is just instead of, parables and allegorical stories that are there to give you a picture of a thing so that you can understand and conceptually embody that, which is you actually becoming the God that you are, your ascension process. So, to me, there's there's definitely a baby in the bathwater, but we got to know how to throw that bathwater out.
All right. Once again, it's the Roundtable, episode 44, family. The number is 319-527-6239. That's the call-in number. If you're on social media, if you're on the internet, checking out the show, you can dial that number and then press number 1, and we'll add you into the conversation. As far as digging a little deeper, just a little bit, when it comes to religion, as the panel agree that religion is the devil, as Sister Danielle said, is the devil, right? So which religion do you feel is given the most, problems, or is the most, where the most confusion is coming from, I guess, so to speak? Let's go to Sister Danielle.
First off, let me respond to Sister Reese. I believe the scripture you're referring to is Psalms 82, where it says, and I'm not sure, I'm looking at I don't know what version I'm reading, but I think it says, I have said, God, ye are, and sons of the Most High, all of you. Maybe that's one that you're referring to, I'm not sure. But just in referring to the idea of God versus gods, I definitely believe that we are all created in the image of the Most High. And I believe that when the Most High created the man species, male and female, he created us in his image. So when we look at each other, we are looking at the image of the Most High. And that is why I cannot hate my brother and my sister for any reason whatsoever, because that's like hating the Most High. So I definitely agree with the concept that we are gods. We are the Most High here sent on a mission as ambassadors for a purpose. And that's what I feel like I should be focused on, is why I was sent here, to create that purpose. So in regards to that, I agree. I'm looking at the images of the Most High everywhere I go. And I want to treat everyone as if they are worthy, because it's not my position to judge anybody regardless of what it is that they're doing. However, I do want to uphold a certain standard of the kingdom that I am learning to follow according to the laws and so forth. So anyways, that's my position on that. My response to your question, Sal, as far as what religion do I think is creating the most confusion? The most religion that I have experience with, I would say, is Christianity. And the reason why I would say that creates the most confusion is because it is one of the most widespread religions that is also most widely misinterpreted. And that's why you have Christianity in a lot of different aspects as well. I mean, like, you have Christians that don't agree with each other and the foundations that they stand on. So, I mean, there's a lot of different types of Christians as well. So I would just say the most confusion, in my opinion, comes from the Christians and how they have so much control, so much influence, and how they've just been inserted so much in not only society but even our government. So I would say in my opinion, that religion.
All right, Sister Reese.
Okay, so I have to just say I'm a little bit of a nerd, so what I'm going to say it might be a little abstract. A lot of my personal friends say that I'm very abstract. I'm going to try not to do that. I've been sitting here thinking about what I'm going to say, and everything I have to say is like, girl, that is not going to work. So, because we're talking about God, which is a very abstract concept. And this is one thing I like about talking about God, because I like to point out the fact that every single time you ask any person about what God is or who God is, you're going to get a different answer. And that, to me, is the most beautiful thing about God, is because it proves the fact that God is whoever we say he is or it is. And so that's how, at some point, we begin to realize this whole concept of we are gods. And so, like I said earlier, when I began, or I should say when I continued my studies, I moved on to spirituality, and it's a very scientific study. The human spirit is a scientific tool that enables our bodies to have this purpose and this mission that my sister Danelle was just talking about. So this is, to me, when I think about God, I don't think of a personified entity. I think of the system that I was talking about earlier, because, like my sister said, we are created in the image of the Most High, and the Most High law that governs our bodies, our minds, our spirits, our energy, it is the universe at large. It as a complete whole, which is the reason why we are little individual parts or little individual extensions of the whole. It's almost like the small little that you have on your tongue. You could consider the tongue the entire universe as a whole, but the little extensions that come off of the tongue would be each individual, where they have their own individual purpose, they have their own individual taste, they have their own individual shape, and, whatever else you can imagine. But essentially, we don't have to remove ourselves from this system because we are a part of it. We are of the earth, like I said before. This is a spiritual thing that has to do with our blood and the fact that we are of the earth. The systems of the earth are the systems that created us and how we govern in this universe, in this planet, this dimension, this reality. We're all governed by a set of laws and rules, which is the supreme law, the supreme God, the supreme truth. That's called natural law. I think that's probably the best way to explain it. It's natural law. That's the reason why we essentially, like I said before, we're returning back to nature, because we're turning back to God. When I know this about my people, and which I'm very proud of my people, is that we know what to do instinctively. Oh, God, what word is that I'm trying to say? By instinct. We know what to do. And so, God has always been something that's just in our souls, and we believe so hard. But sometimes we kind of overthink things. Returning back to nature and natural law and the supreme truth of things, supreme information, like I said before, we're passing information to each other. Eventually, we'll all understand the same things the same way as we duke it out with the truth and with our facts and all this, debating that we do. We'll eventually get to a point where a supreme truth has been understood between all of us. And then at that point, we will have this collective, what is called collective consciousness. Because we're a part of one spiritual body, we get to one spiritual place, which is a mental place. It's a place of intelligence. We all understand the same truth at some point. And then our minds are then connected with our source, which is the natural truth, the natural laws that govern us. We have the law of mentality. We have the law of cause and effect. We have the law of attraction and some other laws. There are 7 of them in total. But these are the laws that govern our universe. And once we learn these laws and keep those laws only, like I said, it's only like 7 of them. We keep those laws and learn how to govern our bodies, learn how to govern our energies, learn how to tap into our spirits, our purpose, our mission, our talents and gifts. these are the things that come from nature. And so we just have to understand. I'm going to tell you, like I said, God is a scientific, spiritual experience. If I think of God, I'm thinking of like the periodic table. There are 103 elements on the periodic table, and each one of those elements are the only things that you will find on this planet. That has to be a good indicator of the building blocks of, how to understand God, how to understand alchemy, which is the advanced form of chemistry. The things that we used to teach in our ancient culture was alchemy. And, of course, it got institutionalized and turned into chemistry. But on the chemistry periodic table, it gives you a good indicator of how the Creator created all of this, because you create compounds from those things. If I say that I'm constantly surrounded by God, because I'm constantly surrounded by nature, I'm constantly surrounded by love. And one of my friends gave me a very good understanding of what love actually is. And he said, you can only recognize love when you're being fed. And to me, everything around me feeds me. Everything that I encounter, whether it be a mental experience, a spiritual experience, a physical experience, I'm going to learn from it. And because information is, the supreme thing, like I said, we're in the age of information. That's what's in our spiritual atmosphere right now. It's information. It's building us to a point where we can learn about all of the spiritual things that's going on with us, and we can enlighten ourselves and spiritually ascend. But, like I said, these are all systematic things. And, at some point, we will – I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the Church of Scientology, but I would go so far to say that maybe the Church of Scientology would be the closest thing that we would have if we purified what their practices are. I think the Nation of Islam is currently in some kind of controversial partnership with the Church of Scientology, in which I think it should be controversial because our enemies took that information from us to create the Church of Scientology, which is where they actually respect science, and they treat it as a spiritual respect. And that is actually the reason why they're able to govern and control society, because they know how to condense and oppress the human spirit. And so they're doing that by way of science. They have the help of radio waves and all these big technologies that they use to suppress our spirits, because they know that it's a scientific study. And so if we were, again, to learn how to use our scientific tools, we would understand how to, lift ourselves out of this mental oppression. We're in a state of ignorance. And so we really have to, pick ourselves up by bootstraps and realize our true enemy. We're not being dominated or oppressed because we don't have the ability. We're being oppressed because we don't have the knowledge. And so we have, it's a discipline of study that we need to get ourselves in line with. And once we do that, I believe our concept of who and what God is will like I said, it'll sanctify itself. We'll get there.
All right, family, you can chime in. You know that number. I see we got a caller standing by. The number's 319-527-6239. I just checked the email. That was some other stuff. But, use the email, debatetalkforyou@gmail.com, debatetalkforyou@gmail.com. You can email, you can call in, and, we're going to go to the people. Let's see. Let's go to 530-763. You're live.
Yo, greetings. And much love to the sisters on the panel. It's B.A. Ben Abraham out of Sacramento, California. And I've been listening for quite some time, and I would just like to chime in when it comes to religion. Religion most definitely, in my opinion, is a weapon of the state. A lot of our people, I just say overall, a lot of people that have their beliefs, a lot of people, they're not able to separate when it comes to Christianity or anybody that believes any form of any doctrine that comes out of the scriptures or whatnot. A lot of people are having a hard time separating the religious doctrine from actually having love and compassion for others. And when you read the scriptures, the Bible is big and it's anti-religion overall. It's about having love and compassion for others and standing for justice. A lot of people fail to realize. A lot of people you could read in the scriptures about Christ when he was anti-religious establishment. It was the religious establishment that had him crucified, and they had him. He was tried for treason, speaking out against the state. He was executed as a criminal. A lot of people don't even know that. But in this day and age, religion most definitely is a weapon of the state. It divides and conquers people because people don't know how to step outside the religious box. Because I think there's a big confusion when it comes to religion. I think a lot of people, they're just indoctrinated so deep that they don't realize that religion most definitely is a major, major issue. Instead of living outside, instead of stepping outside the box and actually looking at how their behavior is. I may have not said that right, but overall, religion most definitely can be a big, big problem. I think is we tend to forget that we're human beings, and that's my issue with the Hebrew Israelite paradigm. Is that a lot of the brothers they like to sit on the street corners, or they like to say this and say that, and they tend to forget that they're human beings. And now all of a sudden they can't jump outside their personal doctrine, and they find themselves being very inhumane. And the hatred for women and the hatred for other people is not how humanity is going to get forward. Humanity is going to grow and is going to get past. The only way we get rid of oppression and all these ills of society if we learn to love. Like I said before, love is an action. But when you're indoctrinated or when you're so wrapped up into religion, you don't even know what love is. You have to learn how to love yourself before you can love and teach others. And one thing about religion, we have allowed it to compromise the way we think as human beings. We're actually becoming beast-like or animal-like. That is what organized religion has done to humanity overall, not just black people, but to humanity overall. When it comes to politics, I'll follow it. I think it's a bunch of folly. I don't really support neither side. I think they're both a bunch of crooks. A lot of people right now are really, really happy that a certain political candidate by the name of Bernie Sanders is running. I like a lot of his views and his policies, but what a lot of people fail to understand is that the system is rigged and corrupt. And it doesn't matter how good a person appears to be. The system, you can't go into a system that's been corrupt for so long and be one man to change it. So the only way that the people are going to have justice if they not put themselves in a situation to where they pick a few people to decide what's going to go on or govern them. The people have to break away, and hopefully the state will wither away. You can read about this in the writings of Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin, where they had hopes that humanity would eventually become a society or a utopia to where they don't need government anymore. And a lot of people, they take that out of context and say, oh, they're talking about a society without rules. No. Eventually what happens is humanity comes to a point to where they are organized, to where they have a constant love for each other overall, to where all the natural resources, and we realize that all the natural resources belong to us as a people. We have a natural right because human beings are natural resources because we come from the ground, and when we die, we go right back to the ground. So, but the writings of Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin, what they were saying is that they were most definitely have loved to see humanity come to a point to where everything that is on earth, all people have access to it. And that's pretty much the message of the scriptures as well. And like I said, I don't want to say too much. I'm going to just fall back and allow the sisters to continue. Greetings and shalom to all.
All right, it's Brother BA right there hosting the Man Up segment in the second quarter. Right here in Debate Talk for you. Sister Danielle, you can respond.
I would say that he brought out a lot of good points in regards to politics and things like that, but that was kind of, part of the conspiracy that we have not covered yet, which is what, I guess he kind of touched on politics in regards to the New World Order and them trying to be in control and Bernie Sanders not really having much sway or much power, because at the end of the day, it's those, in his opinion, the elite that's going to end up making all the final decisions anyway. So I definitely believe that, in his opinion, in regards to religion, that it is something that divides, and it's something that it's, in my opinion, like I said before, is of the devil. So I think that he just kind of touched on some things that we kind of spoke on earlier. I appreciate him calling in and showing support, but I agree with a lot of the points that he made.
Sister Reese?
I also agree with a lot of the things he said, especially about the fact that religion is divisive for the purpose of conquering people. We pretty much understand that it has certain dark functionality to it. And I also think that, we just need to, like you said, practice the love and compassion for other people. And that's because we're all connected. When you show love and compassion for others, you actually show that for yourself. And I think that's one reason why our society thrived in prehistoric times, is because we understood that there was a balance to nature and that we had to actually give in order to receive ourselves. So that's something, again, that we're returning to our ways of sharing with each other and learning how to share and pool our resources and how to do things for the benefit of others instead of just looking out for ourselves. We're kind of coming together to assist in this righteous fight. That's a very noble thing. So I definitely, I agree.
All right, the number is 319-527-6239. Once again, it's the Roundtable episode 44, Conspiracy Theories, but that's what we're talking about today on Debate Talk Radio. I got a lot more on the table so we can speak about different subjects. Let's go down the line to the next one. Now, this one right here, man, okay. Secret organizations. Or are they secret organizations? Fraternities, Freemasons. Some of us have people that join these organizations in our families. Some actually join these organizations for, for a certain status, things of that nature. What do you know about these organizations? Is there a conspiracy behind it, a negative conspiracy, positive? What are your thoughts when it comes to, like, fraternities, Freemasons, things of that nature? Go ahead, Reese Roberts.
I definitely, I know and understand that there are organizations that are out there, whether we call them fraternal organizations or brotherhoods, or we call them, think tanks. There are all kind of different orders and associations and organizations and businesses and corporations, all of them out there who have what we call influence. And I think that has to be the first, understanding, or the first concept that we put in our minds, is that these are essentially people who have heavy influence on the governing of society. And this was mentioned by our caller. It's because they're rich and wealthy that they have this position that they had created for themselves. So I do believe that these organizations exist. I mean, to me, this is another thing that is very well supported by evidence. And I don't think that they're secret either. The simple fact that these organizations exist and people can join them means that they're not secret. They're just, people just don't know about them unless they're, invitation only or something like that. People just don't acknowledge them, I should say, more so than they don't know about them. Because, all of us have knowledge of these Illuminati conspiracy theory. We know about it, but, you know, we choose to believe it or choose not to believe it. And even if we do or don't, we still don't have access to go there. And so we could call it private or secret in that respect, the fact that we're not invited. But, you know, there's no secret to me about it. It's not really a secret. It's just a matter of who believes and who doesn't, and for what reason. So if you kind of look at what the secret fraternities and the secret orders and all these other terms, what are they? What is the theory that they're doing? How are we defining what the secret society is? Because if we're once again looking at the output of a system, if we're saying that these secret groups are the ones conspiring to influence society, to control our minds and to dumb us down and to make us docile, and to make us slaves, mental slaves, where we're focused on consumerism, individualism, and capitalism. These are things that are well supported with good research. Neither do they exist, the evidence is supported. There are very structured, very well orchestrated, very well educated, very well organized efforts to do these things. There is a reason why at the push of a button, somebody can launch a campaign that starts to desensitize the masses about censorship. I'm going to start back in the 60s. Because there's a path that points in a certain direction that tells us this is being done intentionally. Evolution definitely tells a very, very interesting story about man. And so you start back in I want to call it modern history, in the 60s, where you essentially had censorship. You would not hear cursing or sexual innuendos on TV or radio, or even in certain printed magazines and publications. Things were taboo back then. A lot of things were taboo back then. But then you move to the next generation in the 70s, where you have war, liberation, people having, these revolutions going on in the 70s, where people are, smoking marijuana, they're getting high on mushrooms, and doing what we're actually doing right now. I actually see a lot of similarities between the 70s and right now, where they are tapping into their spirit in the 70s because they're against the war and they wanted to end the war at Vietnam. So then you proceed to the 80s, where clearly there was a unified effort to stop that revolution and evolution effort. You had the Black Panther Party, which was definitely a global organization. I just learned recently that the Black Panther Party was a international organization which was in communications with the United Nations back then. And that's the reason why the CIA infiltrated and deconstructed party, because they were getting ready to learn and find out that melanated people were the rightful owners of the land titles and land deeds in the American region, that we're not from Africa, but we're indigenous to the Americas. They were going to prove that, and so they could not be allowed to continue. So I'm going to move forward by saying, the crack wave of crack that, flooded our neighborhoods. This was done by the federal government. This was an organized effort. These are things that are well documented and well known. But when you put it in a timeline and you think of that, these things didn't happen by accident. The order to start selling crack in black neighborhoods only was not just a manifestation that came out of nowhere. It came out of the mind of someone who intentionally wanted to disable an entire community of people mentally and spiritually. And that's exactly what they did. They came up with the perfect way. It was planned, and then it was executed. And so when you realize the games that are being played, this is I hate to make reference to this, but Steve Harvey said that we're playing a money game. And that's exactly what this is. The money game is that the Caucasians are able to lay claim to natural resources and land that they are not genetically tied to in order for them to remain dominant over an oppressed society in which they are intentionally oppressing. So, no, there's no secret about these societies, about these orders and organizations. We call them the federal government. The secret society is your Social Security check. The secret society is your refund check. The secret society is your hourly wage. The secret society is everything that is used to govern and control you. The secret society is your television. Society is the agenda to feminize your sons. It is the agenda to take away your freedom to speak. It is the agenda to take away your freedom to protect yourself with firearms. You understand? These are things that are well documented. It's not secret at all. And yes, it is a society of people, which we call Europeans or Caucasians, the rich and wealthy ones of them, who are making these efforts to continue their positions of power and authority. There's nothing you can do to one of those powerful people of authority right now in this system to disable them. But if you deconstruct the system that they're operating in, then they have nothing left. So I'm going to close with that.
All right, family. Once again, it's the Roundtable, episode 44, Debate Talk View Radio. We're talking about conspiracy theories right here on Debate Talk View. The number is 319-527-6229. My special guest is Reese Roberts and Sister Danielle. Let's go to Sister Danielle. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Fraternities, Freemasons, the Illuminati, secret, organizations. Is it real? Is it not real? Give us some information that you have when it comes to these organizations. Go ahead.
Absolutely, Sal. Well, let me just say this. I would pose this question. First off, if the question is, do secret societies exist? For one, I would say, like Sister Reese said, we know that these organizations exist, so that's not the secret. So I would just say this. How many of us watch reality TV shows where members on the show could be eliminated by by voting or competition or so forth, right? So what happens on every single show where that is the case? You have alliances formed, right? Every single time you're going to have an alliance formed. And if you don't build an alliance or you choose not to participate in an alliance, that is probably going to ensure that you're going to be one of the first people eliminated or that you're not going to be one of the finalists, right? And so for you not to believe that these people with wealth, these people of power, these people in these organizations, the bankers and these people that make certain decisions would not work together to ensure that their survival and their agendas are successful. It would be naive to believe that they're not working together. So, of course, it's not a secret that these organizations exist. The secret is their agendas. What is the agendas? And some of us know what the agendas are because they're pretty clear, but that's where it comes into whether you believe it or whether you don't believe it. And then there are other things to consider, such as when you join these organizations such as Freemasons and you join the sororities or the fraternities, because I have people in my family that are part of all of it. My grandfather we just buried yesterday, and I did not know, but I found out on yesterday that he was a Freemason, actually a Grand Duke. Had no idea. He didn't talk about it to us, and by the time we obviously were growing up, he wasn't active. But nevertheless, I have a lot of people in my family that, I hold in high regard or respect that have been a part of these organizations or societies or that pledge for certain fraternities or sororities. But certain levels that you're on, you're not privileged to certain information and agendas. So if you're a new recruit into the Freemasons, you're not going to have all the secrets as somebody that would be above you on a certain level of clearance, right? Just like if you're part of the FBI or whatever, you have to have a certain level of clearance to be privileged to a certain level of information. So even in these secret societies, you might be a member and still have not reached the level where you know what certain secret agendas are. So you're going to find people that are in these societies or organizations or whatever that have good intent and have good purposes for being involved in them. They just want to do well in the community, and they're being told that that's what the organization is about. But you're also going to have people in these societies that are going to have other motives, and that are going to use their resources and their connections through this organization to fulfill those motives and make sure that their agendas are met. So I don't believe that it is the actual organizations that are controlling everything, because, like I said, there are good and bad apples in the organization, but there are definitely some agendas within these organizations that people empower and have a lot of connections and resources within these organizations that use these organizations to push and complete their agendas.
All right, family. Once again, it's Debate Talk for you. The number is 319-527-6239. Make sure you call in. We have like maybe half an hour left in the air, so I'm gonna throw in maybe two subjects because I have so many subjects on the table here. I want to throw in like maybe two, but again, the number is 319-527-6239. You can also send me an email, debatetalkforyou@gmail.com, and I'll gladly read out your questions. Sister Reese, you want to say anything before we go to the next subject real quick? Go ahead.
Oh, no, we can go ahead to the next one.
All right, I'm going to throw two in this one. I'm going to throw two in here for the sake of time. Population control. Is that a part of the conspiracy theory? And also the medical system. Some people believe vaccinations. If you go online on social media, or the people have their suspicions when it comes to vaccinations, and some of the things that the doctors are doing out there. They're saying that some doctors are missing and getting killed, behind revealing some of the medical practices out there that's going on, like systematically putting disease out there, things of that nature when it comes to the medical system. As far as population control, we know about that. What are your beliefs when it comes to that? Is that a conspiracy, population control, and the medical system? Go ahead, Reese.
Okay, so I think these things are very closely related, and as population control is being executed by way of the medical system. So I don't think that this should be considered conspiracy theory at all, because it's one of the most highly publicized and the most widely known, truths about our society is that our medical system is not created to heal us, but it's created to simply manage our symptoms from the diseases that we're given by the things that exist in our society. Now, we have a federal Food and Drug Administration. So why is it that our food is the very thing that's killing us medically? And we're paying them to do this. Because like I said before, this is government services that are being provided. Somebody is being paid to check out the health quality or the nutritional value of our food. But yet our food is our number one killer. And so, you have people living with ailments that all come from the food that we're eating. Why? Because food is industrialized. They make money and build their economy based off a food industry. And so when they create these artificial, compounds, when they create these artificial foods that don't have any nutritional value, and that's all we eat, we have to understand that these are not conspiracies. These are well-founded facts about reality. And so these, I really could just stop right there because there's nothing really left to say. But the way society is right now speaks volumes for itself.
Yeah, because, a lot of people, when you tell them about population control and the medical system, they do not believe anything. You know what I mean? Like, they just believe everything is working well. It's a working system with no flaws.
Oh.
So you bring that up so they consider it, that. You want to say something to that? Mm-hmm.
I did have one more thing I wanted to say about the population control, because it broke my heart when I learned that there is 80% of abortion clinics, of all abortion clinics, 80% of them are in Black communities. And according to statistics, it's one of the largest killers of life in our community. It's voluntary abortion of the fetus. And if it's not clear that that's an attempt to control a certain population, then you should also consider the fact that they're attempting to pass laws right now to allow abortion all the way up until birth for a child, because there is an industry for that too. After an abortion is executed, then the fetus is basically sold on the black market piece by piece. And there is some pretty extensive research that has to be done to find out, the real whistleblowers in that industry, but it exists. It perfectly explains how they're able to bottle up melanin and sell it over the counter, or sell it as a prescription or a beauty product. How are you able to put melanin into a beauty product? Where are you getting that from? There's a lot to be said about just the way things are. We have to just understand this is not a theory when it's proven by existence. It's proven by what is currently going on at the moment, if we, research.
All right, guys, we got like a few, maybe 20-something minutes left. Again, if you want to chime in, just press number 1 if you're already on the phone lines. But if you're on the internet, the number is 319-527-6239. Then you press number 1, and you can chime in that way. Sister Danielle, go ahead.
Well, wow. Let me just start off by saying that I have over 25 years experience in the healthcare industry. I have been a medical biller for a long time. And the reason why that is important is because when you see how claims are paid, when you see what claims are denied, when you see what treatment and what medication it gets approved and gets put on the list, then you can start to understand the motive behind what's going on. And mostly everything is determined by Medicare guidelines when it comes to our healthcare system and insurance system. As long as Medicare doesn't allow it, no other insurance company has to allow it. As long as Medicare sets a certain amount that a doctor or a facility should be paid, then that becomes the standard for all health care. So who sets the standard for Medicare? Right?
Mm-hmm.
The standards for Medicare become the norm for everybody. And that is what everyone based their what should be allowed and shouldn't be allowed on is what Medicare approves and disapproves. So basically what happens in government and the laws that pass definitely affect us in our healthcare system. Now, initially, before all these laws changed with the Obamacare and things like that, there is a certain law that says that if you are in an emergent situation, you cannot be refused health care or treatment in the United States of America. Well, at least here in California, I know for certain. There is, and I believe it's more than California because I've done billing in multiple states. But if you are in an emergency room, you cannot be refused treatment. Well, that was costing the pharmaceutical companies, the healthcare industry a lot of money because you get these homeless people, these people that are uninsured or underinsured going in there and they can't refuse them treatment and they have to offer them certain services. Well, some of these services that they were needing to offer some of these people were quite expensive. And most of the people that were coming in there and were needing these services, they want to make it seem like are people that are in poverty, people that are coming in from gunshot wounds or things like that, and they're saying that they're coming in here with no insurance and they're driving up the insurance costs on the rest of us that are paying for insurance or have group health care. But that's not always necessarily the case, because when you consider that the pharmaceutical companies and like Sister Reese was pointing out, the FDA basically makes society sick, right? Because they want to promote these, they put these certain foods in our grocery stores and that are within our reach. And you got Monsanto's out there with his seeds and the things that's going on and all of what's going on in our food and that we're ingesting and things like that. And then you get sick to make the pharmaceutical companies money, to make the doctors money, and then you go to the doctor, and then they want to force you to also pay for health care because they want to say the problem is that you're coming in without insurance, when the bottom line is the problem is that you're making us sicker than we need to be. And then when you look at the medical bills, the more sick you become, the less they start to cover. So now you have all these people covered under Obamacare, and you have all these people that are covered under these government insurances, and most of the things that they're going to need treatment for because they've already projected what you're going to be sick with. They already know what they're feeding you. They already know the consequences it is going to cause on your body. So they know in certain geographical areas what doctors are going to be needed, what medication is going to be needed, what treatment is going to be needed. So they've already projected your illnesses on a geographical area, because when you go to your doctor and you swipe your insurance card and a bill gets sent to your insurance company, that is an electronic statement that is tracked everywhere. I don't care if it doesn't have your protected health information on it, such as your name and your social security number. If you just draw in the data of how many people are getting treated for a particular illness in a particular geographical area, you can get a lot of information just from that. And you can build your financial structure and strategic attacks based on that. What you feed them, what you give them, and if the pharmaceutical company wants you to buy a certain medication more, if they want to promote a new medication more, then all they have to do is create an illness that's going to require you to purchase that medicine, and then they're going to send you to the doctors, and they're going to give these doctors these free samples and say, hey, try this, offer this new medication to your patient. And so do I believe that the healthcare industry is a big conspiracy? Absolutely. Do I think we need to return back to eating off the earth? Absolutely. I think that we need to go back to eating according to the laws, and I do think that we need to start considering what is healthy and natural for our body and stop consuming so many processed goods and fast foods and things that's just quick and convenient. And I think, again, that goes down to our microwave mentality, because we're not living according to purpose. We're living according to survive, and that affects everything that we do and the time that we make for it.
Sister Reese, sound like you want to chime in. Go ahead.
I think that is just absolutely profound when you think about the fact that, you know, you pretty much get the cure or the medicine for the disease right after they introduce it. And I'm kind of just, say it's more than likely the vaccination that are administering the diseases in the first place. It has, because the vaccines are such concoctions of all kinds of chemicals, they can pack it, and they design new vaccines, every time they want to introduce a new disease. I mean, we have vaccines that change and they just pile them on as the years go by. And the more vaccines they give us, the more diseases we have. I mean, and the more cures they have to, they go in a little lab. It's kind of like in the superhero movies where the guy already has the antidote. You know, it's like you're just making me sick just so that you can get all this money off of the quote unquote cure. And so, you know, it's just ridiculous to bear witness to these types of things, that we have to sit back and know that these things are happening and we feel powerless against it. The healthcare system is just the way things are. But, you know, we really do have power. Like she said, I'm going to tell you, my husband delivers ice cream for an ice cream company. He said that their company meeting was talking about the fact that Mayfield just closed down one of their Mayfield. They just closed down one of their warehouses because they don't have anyone to sell their dairy products to. And to me, of course, it's because there's a vegan movement to, you know, reduce and cut out dairy. And so it's actually having a real effect on the industry, the dairy industry, because we have to understand that this is a medical thing. At some point, all of the side effects that were coming to people from consuming dairy, we're going to stop consuming the medication for that at some point. You know, it's going to be an entire shift of how things are affecting us when we go back to eating off the land and learning how to nurture our bodies just by nature. And I'm going to tell you, I think our people of color, have a special advantage when it comes to living off the land because, of course, we already know how to do it. You know, that kind of stuff is in our DNA. And it's very easy for us to turn back to nature because we are of nature. So I'm always optimistic about something because you have to be. But I'm very optimistic about that because I feel like it's a perfect opposition to our oppressor trying to medically suppress us or medically oppress us. If we know how to live off of nature and learn how to just simply do what comes naturally to us, but like I said before, our enemies at some point will just disappear. Because, I mean, what they're going to do, come and force feed us dairy products? We are going to be able to make our own decisions once we educate ourselves about the proper way to make the decisions. And things that even sometimes I feel like some people need to be exposed to more information just so that they can know there are more decisions that need to be made because, you know, the oppression and the attempts to oppress, they go very deep. All of the systems that oppress us are there to create oppression in our minds, our bodies, and our spirit. So, you know, that's a lot to cover. We have a lot of studying, a lot of understanding to do about those three things. We have to understand our minds, we have to understand our bodies, and we have to understand our spiritual environment. And so, you know, if we're not getting these things together at some point, you know, we'll kind of just meet our own self-destruction because, you know, if somebody continues to consume a lot of dairy products, eating red meat, eating pork, you just keep doing what you're doing, then you'll meet your fate. You know, it'll just affect you how it's going to affect you unless you decide you want to turn back. So, you know, the medical industry might not be such a huge thing that we have to overcome because we just naturally know how.
Yeah, guys, this is Danielle. I know you want to follow up on that. And 224, I'm going to get to you. I see you standing by. I'm going to get to your call. Again, we open up the phone lines for callers, y'all, so if you want to chime in, you can chime in. Sister Danielle, guys.
I would say I agree with Sister Reese, but I do want to say that, in my opinion, I do believe that it's something to contend with, not because we don't know how to contend with it, but because they also have things that they do when we try to use our independence. I know of a town called Allensworth in California, in between Fresno and Bakersfield, where Colonel Allensworth came, and it was a black community. It was established. They were independent, and the more independent they became, the more oppressed the people around them obviously wanted to be. The more oppression they wanted to subject them to. And so it got down to a point where they actually poisoned their water supply. so that their cattle couldn't be fed, so that they couldn't eat, so that they couldn't use the water supply to water their crops. And now it is a museum. And I covered it on my radio show last year when they had an event there, and we kind of told the story about Allensworth. But unless you put things in place to protect your independence, it will also be oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
There, Reese. I see you want to say something. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm agreeing. I'm in total agreement. I mean, that is demonstrated throughout history. You know, where different revolts at certain times were, they were, I guess, infiltrated, or they had a certain effect. But I think a good point to also consider is that those are localized types of control, and because what's happening with us, I hate to be so repetitive, but because it's a spiritual thing that's happening right now, I don't think that same type of attack would be applicable, only because they can't kill all of us, and all of us will be doing that because we're enlightening our minds to know how to do that. You know, they would have to poison us all. So there are global and collective consciousness is about everybody connecting on the same level of intelligence, where we're all doing the same things that we know to do by nature. And so returning back to nature is not something that the government can control. If they try to do that, they'd have to kill everybody who is enlightened, which is impossible to determine or even execute. And they would have to understand that that's their human resources that I was talking about earlier. If you want to kill such a great amount of people, you know, you're going to kill off your life supply. We understand that Caucasians, their functionality in society is parasitic in nature. And so they cannot survive without a host. They can't kill everybody. I mean, they would have done that a long time ago, but this is the reason why the term population control is what it is, because they're controlling the levels of population. They cannot completely wipe us out. If they did, they would have by now. I mean, if they could, they would have by now because they hate us. So, you know, we have to consider that there's a reason why we're being kept here. There's a reason why we're still on this planet. They would have been murdered us all and put our heads on the stake. But they're living off of us. So, you know, we could really do what we want to do because they're living off of us.
All right, let me let Sister Danielle chime in, and after that, I'm gonna get the callers too before I see you. Once again, the number's 319-527-6239. Feel free to chime in, and after this, we're gonna pretty much wrap it up. But yeah, that's Sister Danielle. Go ahead.
I would just agree. That there are going to be some people, and there are going to be some groups that are going to resist, and they're going to be successful in their resistance. I just think that we need to be strategic. We need to be unified. We need to be knowledgeable, and I think that, again, that's what we're doing now, like we said earlier when we were saying that in this panel and these discussions and things like that, and bringing the knowledge to the table is what we're doing to help the situation and help the progression of our unity and our independence.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to the phone lines. The number is 319-527-6239. Simply press number 1, and we'll add you in the conversation. Let's go to 224-636. You're live.
Hello, how's everybody doing? Sorry.
Doing pretty good.
All right. I just had a comment about the whole conspiracy thing and the food and healthcare. And I don't know if the other lady was making a negative or positive comment towards veganism, but I'm not a strict vegan, but I'm a vegan. And when I started to look into vegan, it really started to open up. Kind of what I saw was like some sort of conspiracy when it comes to the food industry. You see industries like American Diabetes Association, American Cancer Society, and Susan G. Komen being sponsored by Kraft and Tyson and Yoplait. And what's ironic to me is Susan G. Komen's supposed to be a breast cancer awareness, and dairy products have IGF-1, which can be like a cancer promoting product. And so it's like so why are they promoting something that actually can make the cancer worse? And so the more I dove into kind of looking into veganism, I started to see how a lot of our diets are contributing to our number one killer, heart disease, and obviously the vegan diet is not being, or even a plant-based diet is not being pushed as much as McDonald's and Popeyes and all these other fast food restaurants, which seems like there's kind of a working together to get everybody, or to get most of us to eat these foods, knowing that we're going to develop heart disease and high blood pressure, so they can give us these medicines, because they never really, I know some people that have some of these conditions and they don't tell them anything about maybe trying a vegan diet, or they'll, I go to the doctor for an ear infection, and I've even talked to the doctor and explain to them how, or at least ask them about how ear infections usually don't get cured with antibiotics because it's an infection or a virus, and they'll still prescribe me the antibiotics. So just some of the things that they do on a procedure level just doesn't make sense. And even the lady that was a nurse, one time for my son, I go in because he had a cold. I go into the hospital or to the doctors, and the nurse tells us, just give him Gatorade for electrolytes. But at the same time, sugar is bad for your healing process when it comes to your throat issues. So it would make more sense for you to recommend Smart Water or some type of water with electrolytes and not Gatorade. So I don't know does that make any sense?
All right, let's let the ladies chime in. Sister Danielle, go ahead.
Yeah, I would definitely say that your opinion does make sense, and then I would agree with you. A lot of things and the procedures that go on in the healthcare system and offices definitely raise concern for conspiracy. My example is when my daughter was a baby and she was going through her immunization period, there was a period of time where there was an immunization that was new and coming out, and it wasn't mandatory, but it was being pushed on everyone. And I had refused to give it to my daughter at the time, and her pediatrician was so pushy about administering this immunization that he removed her as a patient because I refused to give it to her. And he said that if I did not trust his professional opinion, then I should take my daughter elsewhere. And I thought that was quite suspicious, especially my history in the healthcare industry. So there are a lot of things that are being pushed and done, and it makes you question the motives of those that you're supposed to be able to trust. So I would agree with the caller that there's a lot of reasons why I get a raised eyebrow whenever we are going to see a doctor or someone like that, and I feel like keeping myself more informed and more educated on natural remedies and natural ways of treating myself and being more focused on preventing and eating healthy is more what I'm trying to do than trying to go to the doctor in a hope that they have my best interest at heart. There's another doctor that I researched that had been found to have breast cancer, and when I researched her story, she said one of the main things she wasn't going to do was have chemotherapy and have surgery. And she said because she knew out of her medical expertise that none of those things were going to cure her cancer because none of those things caused her cancer. And so just researching her covering how she healed herself and things like that, it just brings a lot of light to the table. But again, knowledge is power. And when we start to equip ourselves with more knowledge on how to be proactive in keeping ourselves healthy, we won't have to go see the doctors and take their medications that are going to make us more sick and have more side effects.
Right.
Sister Reese? Reese Roberts?
Okay. So I agree with everybody's opinion so far. I think that we do have to understand that Like you said, these organizations are clearly there as a front to achieve some sort of other agenda, which is not to research for a cure. And that's the same thing with other diseases. The Cancer Association is one of them. Stephen D. Coleman is one of them. I think it's the American Heart Association. Many of them have campaigns and other partnerships that directly conflict with their organizational mission. And it's, done so silently that nobody knows or pays any attention to it. And also, you don't pay attention to the fact that their staff members are highly paid, especially their, senior and executive level board of directors and those types of people with those high positions. They're being highly paid off of donating money. And then on top of that, people who donate large amounts of money or any amount of money, they can write it off on their taxes. And so, the American people, all of us, we have to recognize that it's a game. It's a money game. And the reasons, I think there was a Netflix movie or a documentary that was done where it was talking about how some doctors receive huge bonuses whenever they reach a certain quota for how many immunization shots or flu shots that they were able to administer. And so if they reach their quota, then they take home their bonus for Christmas. They don't care anything about the health of the children or the, lab testing or what kind of science went into the creation of this concoction. They don't care anything about that, especially because if you research, you find out that there are all kinds of animal, parts and all kinds of different toxic chemicals that are in those shots. And again, they don't care about any of that. They're not researching for a cure. They're not looking to make anybody healthy. None of that. They're not telling you about no holistic diet. When you go, I asked the doctor. My mother was recovering from her second surgery in cancer, and I asked the doctor to give me some information on how I could care for my mother with, some nutritional stuff. And he really had nothing to say. He was like, I cannot really advise. The only thing I can really tell you is what medications I'm going to give her and, what she can eat with those medications. And I was like, so, I'm trying to find out what she can eat. And he was like, she really can't eat anything but clear lipids. And I was like, how can my mother how can her body not be able to process nutrients? And he just did not have an answer. And I was like, this is really ridiculous because in reality, there is a remedy for what people are going through. There's always a remedy, but they're not interested in that because of the profit. And so, like the caller said, this is definitely something that is, a game. They're just playing a game.
Hi, this is Danielle. You want to chime in real quick before we move on?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I want to say just in wrapping up this topic before we move on is it's not good business for anyone to teach their clients how not to need them. Whether you are the pharmaceutical company, whether you are the doctors, whether you are people in power and control, the bankers that need to lend you money, it is not good business for someone to train you how not to need their services. So it is very reasonable and rational for you to look at things from the point of view that they want me to need them. My independence and my health is not going to benefit them at all. So when you go to people who need you to need them and you ask them to have your best interest at heart, that's kind of psychotic. Mm-hmm. They're not. Their whole basis and agenda is not based on your best interest. It's based on their survival and you needing them. So you becoming independent and healthy is not why they are in business. And if you think that they are in business to get out of business, then you are delusional. Nobody wants to work themselves out of a job. There are remedies to certain illnesses, but the bottom line, in my opinion, is the government and the pharmaceutical companies and the medical industry is wanting to really do research on the human body, and especially the melanin and how certain people are immune to certain things and so forth and so forth. And there are certain things that we are benefited by having melanin in our system that the Caucasian race does not. And that's just a fact. So there is a certain level of research that needs to be done in order for them to create certain remedies and certain medications. But who are they going to research on if they don't kill you? Because I'm not volunteering to be a subject as long as I'm living, right? So you have to have sick people in order to do research, in order to build your knowledge. And that is another fact. So on top of the fact that they want to make money and they want to stay in power, they want to gain more knowledge so that they can continue to give themselves eternal life and heal themselves of certain things. But they don't want to do the research on themselves, and that's why you see so many laws being passed or trying to be passed for abortions and things like that, because they need the fetuses to do the research on. They are not throwing these babies in the garbage can. They are getting donated. Do you know how much certain facilities would pay for an arm of a 3-week-old infant just so that they can train certain new doctors and certain medical staff on how to draw blood or how to run certain tests? That one arm is going to be picked apart in so many different ways just so that they can do research. There is nothing wasted on a dead body as long as it falls into the custody of the government or the healthcare industry. If you think it's just being thrown in a garbage can, once again, you're delusional. There is a purpose and a reason why the research is necessary. And so that is something that we need to be aware of. That is one of the things that in my opinion, is motivating the people in power to keep us sick and to not educate you on things that will make you independent and healthy.
All right, dropping that knowledge. All right, family. Once again, it's Debate Talk Radio. I see we got some more callers. Listen, if you want to chime in last minute, we're pretty much going to wrap it up real soon. But if you have any questions or comments, any quick questions or comments real quick, you can just press number 1 if you're already on the phone lines. Other than that, dial the number 319-527-6239. I see 224 want to chime back in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Real quick, I'll make this quick. I just wanted to if you guys have seen a documentary on Netflix called What the Hell, they show up where they actually made a proposal. Yeah, you're
kind of breaking up a little bit.
All right. They made a scene in the movie What the Hell showing how they actually made a proposal to the courthouse that every 7 years, or it was 4 or 7 years, there should be like only just 7 hours of training and update on nutrition and healthcare in that aspect. And then you had all these other organizations just fighting against that, which is, a bit skeptical in the first place. So I just wanted to throw that last part in and, a great class and everything, a great discussion.
Yeah, we appreciate your call. Like I said, family, this is your last time, y'all. I see we have a lot of people on the phone lines. If you want to chime in real quick question, quick comments, or forever hold your peace, y'all. And the number is 319-527-6239. Press number 1, we'll add you in. All right. So I don't see anybody else pressing number 1. So let's get some last words. Once again, I just want to say I appreciate both special guests for coming on the platform, making some time to come out here and share the information that you provide to the audience out there. Once again, I want to have you guys back, ladies, have you back on the program. I appreciate both of you. Let's go to Reese Roberts. Last words.
Thank you for having me again. I definitely enjoy having some intellectual stimulation. So this is definitely a good place for that. I appreciate the fact that we could take our time to speak. When I was a little girl, my mother and my brother were always telling me I spoke, talk too much. And luckily, I never listened. I still talk too much. But I enjoy being able to do so and being heard, and also having, others to listen and respond. It's just nice to have an exchange that builds on something, really building on understanding. So I definitely enjoy that, and I appreciate it. So again, you guys, I write blogs, I do a podcast, and some other things. I provide business services, everything based on consciousness, everything talking about human interaction and evolution. I do some life coaching, kind of counseling for people. And so all that information can be found on my website, which is www.reeseroberts.com. And my business services website, again, is www.serveincorporated.com. And serve is spelled without the E. Thank you. Thank you, Sal.
All right, I appreciate you. Already have some of that information in the description box. I'm going to add some more in there. Once again, I appreciate you for coming on the platform. Sister Danielle, last words. I appreciate you as well for coming on the platform. I do have your information as well for the audience out there. I want to reach out to both of you. Your last words.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you once again for having me on this show. Before I give my final last words, I just want to respond to the last caller in regards to the movie that he said, what the hell or whatever, and he was talking about a periodic amount of, within every periodic time, a certain amount of time set aside to educate certain people on health and food and whatever. The bottom line is, I would say, is could we trust where that information is coming from? It's not a lack of information that we have. It's whether or not we can trust the resources. And I would just employ people to go out and check their facts, because a lot of information and conspiracies get spread because we really don't believe in ourselves. Where we lack confidence in our own knowledge, we tend to accept someone else's ideas. And I would just say that there is a lot of fact-checking information out there, but be aware that when you have cookies and things like that in your search engine, it's going to solicit more conspiracies to you. And the more you expose yourself to, the more that you're going to believe. And that, in my opinion, is just how the mind works. So my wrap-up is just to be mindful as to what you expose yourself to. Do some facting before you share the information and expose yourself to more, and to pursue love with everything. And when we pursue love, we're not so much focused on the division and what's coming to get us, and we're more so focusing on the kingdom and how to please God. So follow me on my show. Sal is going to put my information below. I have a heart for women and people that are hurting and trying to heal, so I would love to be back on the show. Thank you again for the opportunity. It's been a blessing for me.